And here we are, wine tasting with Pete and Dave. Pete, we've got 10 wines in the lineup today, so we'll get started with this Rumors Moscato 2012.
Okay. Rumors. Who spread the rumors?
Yes. Now, this is going to be a sweet wine, Pete, I suspect. Lots of sugar in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, having said that, you can smell the grapey sort of character that you want in Moscato. So you're looking at the grapes coming through. That's one of the things that they always talk about. The Europeans talk about what you get when you buy Moscato is the wine smells and tastes like grapes. And if it does nothing else, then that's what it's meant to do.
Yes, I do get a little bit of fruit in that, but there is a tremendous sweetness in there.
I suspect that you get more sugar than fruit.
Not my pick. All right. What do we got next here? Minchinberry Brut de Brut. Now, interesting, Pete, the first time I tried a Brut de Brut, another Peter told me that Brut is dry, Brut de Brut is sandpaper.
Okay, and was he being complimentary, you think, when he made that
Well,
reference?
I think so. It's a dry variety. This is obviously had the bubbles injected into it.
Well, Minchinberry is one of those names, isn't it? It's been around a long time, and synonymous with everyday party drinks, really, for a younger generation for probably the last 40 or 50 years. So I
Very
guess
cheerful.
what you see is what you get, uncomplicated, pretty straightforward, and give it a nice chill, and yeah, it would probably work well with summer barbecues. Maybe not quite so well in Canberra when it's -5 overnight.
Oh, a bit cheap and cheerful, I reckon. All right, next one we got here on our list is Salisbury 2012 Simeon Sauvignon Blanc. Not very distinctive.
Not a lot
this
happening, is
particular
there?
wine, no.
I mean, relatively neutral, I guess, in a sense. There's nothing alarmist on the nose. There's nothing really exciting about it either. It sort of just seems to be there, just a crisp, dry, white sort of style. Maybe not as crisp as you might want it to be in terms of what you're getting initially, at least on the nose.
Now, they mentioned on this that the grapes were picked in the cool of the night to capture some of that characteristic, the natural flavors. Can you tell me anything about that?
Well, I mean, the idea of doing that is something that I guess producers tend to do a lot of if the grapes are grown in hot areas. So the mass-produced areas in Australia, the inland regions, the Riverina around Griffith and Leeton, etc., and also even more so where these grapes would have come from, the South Australian riverlands. Basically, if you want to get fruit freshness and cleanness and a little bit of acid into your whites especially, you want to be picking them when it's cool. If you're picking this in the middle of the day when it's 38 degrees, then you're going to get broad flabby flavours into the wine. So you want to keep crisp, clean flavours. That's part of the reason they pick them at night.
Oh, I see. Okay. Not exactly my pick of wines, but...
harmless enough, but maybe not exciting enough to make you want to spend your dollars.
No, that's right. All right, the next one we've got here is Shiraz. This is a Barossa Shiraz from 2011.
Okay.
Called the Boots. I'm just not sure whose boots this filled, but...
Maybe the Kellermeister.
That's
whoever was in charge of the of the vineyard. There's an old Australian story about the land of the wobbly boot, but I don't know how much of that would apply to a 2011 Barossa Shiraz. So you're looking at a cool wet vintage. We've, I think, talked about that before.
There's a bit of fruit in there.
Yeah.
I get a bit of oak in the nose, but it's just all not very pronounced. Yeah, it doesn't jump out of the glass at you, but I mean, I guess you'd pick it as Shiraz though, looking at the characters that are coming out of the glass when you smell it. You're getting some berry fruits, little bit of spice maybe, so you're thinking probably Shiraz rather than anything else. Yep, some berry and a little bit of spice on the palate. It just seems a little bit watered down. Next one we got on the list here, Pete, is a Wyndham Estate regional Shiraz. This is Langhorne Creek.
I was going to say, what's the region if this is regional? Given Wyndham Estate have a lot of different things, we've got Langhorne Creek, so we should expect a bit of the old eucalypt, minty sort of elements, perhaps. And there are some.
Yes, you get that on the nose.
You do.
Straight away.
And that's an interesting thing. Some people find that a distraction and they struggle to think of it as a character that can be complementary or that they like, and yet other people say, well, that's what you want in your wine. And when the French talk about terroir, which is a big buzzword these days, that's one of the characteristics that they're talking about. The fact that you can pick certain regional characters and even vineyard characters from different wines that you try. And definitely Langhorne Creek, you do get some of that regional minty, eucalypty sort of stuff going.
I get a little bit of leather in there, very
Yeah.
nice middle palate,
Yep.
and that goes on for a little while, which is quite nice.
Yeah. Almost, you could say, a superior barbecue red in that respect.
Now, another Wyndham wine here. This is one of the Bin series, Bin 555. Now, this is southeastern Australian Shiraz. So
Very select vineyards, these ones.
It comes from all over southeast Australia, which...
Yeah, anywhere from Brisbane to Adelaide, really.
Yes.
But, they do that. Bigger companies do tend to do that with a lot of their wine, in particular wine that is destined for the export market, because they can't obviously use specific vineyard regions because it comes from all over the place, and multi-regional sourcing of the fruit tends to become a little bit problematical if you're trying to identify where it comes from. So they just say, well, look, this is our wine, this is the blend we make a lot of it, and we want it to be consistent. And in a good year, this seems to be pretty bright fruit in this.
Cherries. Definitely cherries
You
there.
get cherries there, yeah?
I get a little bit of that leather, sort of the wet leather.
Yeah, but I think you get quite ripe fruit on the nose and on the palate. There's quite ripe fruit character, which for a bulk blend, big sort of manufacturer, big company wine, you're getting some pretty good fruit in that, I think.
Let's try the 444. Another Wyndham, southeast Australian fruit.
They're not entirely original with their labelling, are they? 444, 555. I wonder if there's a 666, a devil's wine.
There is 888, and that's Cab Merlot.
Indeed.
444 being the straight Cabernet. Now, I get a little lighter fruit character out of that.
Definitely some lighter fruit characters. What vintage are we looking at here? 2010 again, so a good vintage. Funny enough, I get a bit of mint in that as well. But
Some mint. There's
not
plums.
as pronounced as it was in the Langhorne Creek wine, but you'll often find that in different regional expressions of Cabernet, and sometimes with Shiraz, but particularly with Cabernet, you get a mintiness, and it could be a case of, does it come from Coonawarra, does it come from the Yarra, does it come from Langhorne Creek? I mean, you get mint in different incarnations in all of those regions, and it's just different sort of mint. But yeah.
Lovely wine. A little bit more tannin. Now, the next one we've got here, Pete, is called White Box. This is a Heathcote 2009 Shiraz.
Okay.
And I suspect that 2009 in Heathcote was a fairly warm end of the year, fairly dry.
Yeah, I think, 2009 was pretty hot across most of Victoria, of course. Heathcote, you do tend to have that sort of cold winters and hot summers, and you'll generally get quite robust flavours in your reds from Heathcote, or whites as well, for that matter.
I get a subtle sort of pencil shavings, a subtle little bit of
that's
dry,
an oak sort of character as much as anything else, but quite lifted berry fruit as well on the nose. Certainly there's quite a big fruit style going on there.
Oh, great spice in that too. Oh, good wine with a nice chunk of meat.
It would be. And you're getting quite a bit of tannin on the finish, but they're quite savoury tannins. They're not firm or grippy.
So would you say that's fruit tannin?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, grape tannin. The skin from the grape skins. And, quite a sort of generous sort of style. Again, lends itself then to serving with big red meat dishes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice barbecue steak.
Absolutely.
All right, next wine we've got here is the Nugan from
Nugan
Coonawarra.
estate. Okay.
Cab Sav.
I notice here they make mention of it being from a particular vineyard, the Alcira vineyard. So they want to make this connection with a special site and a special vineyard and that sort of thing, which is something that our winemakers are doing more of these days.
Wow. There's a lot of character there in the nose, isn't there?
There is, and again, this comes back to that minty sort of element that we talked about a minute ago, that you get mint from different places. There's, in its own way, just as much mint here as there is in the Langhorne Creek Shiraz. It's just that it's Coonawarra mint rather than Langhorne Creek mint. But
oh, beautiful ripe cherries. That's a lovely wine.
and quite soft, supple tannin. But again, definitely a Cabernet tannin structure. So in a blind tasting, that would lead you towards Cabernet because of that tannin structure, and then you're going towards Coonawarra because of the particular mint that is characteristic of Coonawarra.
And that spent time in the American and the French oak.
Okay.
All right. The last of our wines here today is Church Road,
Okay.
2009,
This be an interloper from across the ditch then.
Cabernet Merlot.
Okay. And they snuck New Zealand wines into this lineup. We mustn't have had any All Blacks tests recently, perhaps. So they're happy to have New Zealand represented at this point.
From Hawke's Bay, they can put out some pretty ripe wines out of that
Oh,
area.
they do indeed, yes. Now, Hawke's Bay makes particularly Cabernet and Shiraz wines that compare more than favourably with anything we make in Australia.
Beautiful tannin and great structure in that wine. That'll go a long way.
A bigger wine, a bigger palate, if you like, compared to the previous one. I think you look at the Nugan, the Coonawarra Cabernet was a bit leaner, if you like, in relative terms. This one's a bit more sumptuous, a bit lush, and a bit bigger palate. I think bigger middle palate flavours. But again, yeah, you're getting the structure, that Bordeaux structure, if you like. So the tannin structure is there, but beautiful, supple mid palate flavours, and yeah, a good drink that.
Great wine.
Yeah,
And thanks again, Pete. We'll see you again
problem.
next week.
You will indeed.